You are standing at the edge of a cliff, not a physical one. No wind whips at your clothes, no vertigo tugs at your stomach, but a precipice of your own making. Below you stretches the life you could have lived, the person you could have become, the relationships you might have nurtured, the dreams you once held close. And yet, here you stand, frozen. Not because you lack the ability to move forward, but because some unseen force, some shadow within you, has been quietly, methodically loosening the ground beneath your feet. This is the paradox of self-sabotage. The more you desire something, the more fiercely you resist it. The closer you come to success, the louder the voice in your head whispers, "You don't deserve this." You set goals with feverish determination, only to procrastinate, to hesitate, to find some inexplicable reason to turn away at the last moment. You crave love, yet push it away when it arrives. You hunger for achievement, then undermine yourself when it's within reach. Why? The question is not whether you self-sabotage. Every human does, in ways both glaring and imperceptible. But why? Why would a mind engineered for survival so meticulously orchestrate its own failure? Why would you, a creature of longing and ambition, become the architect of your own undoing? Consider the writer who abandons their novel just before the final chapter, the artist who destroys their masterpiece before it's seen, the lover who flees the moment they are truly seen. These are not accidents, they are rituals of avoidance, performed with the precision of a subconscious ballet. The ancient Greeks had a word for this: akrasia, the state of acting against one's own better judgment. Philosophers like Socrates wrestled with it, perplexed by the human capacity to know what is right and yet choose what is wrong. Centuries later, psychologists would give it clinical names: fear of failure, fear of success, imposter syndrome, attachment avoidance. But these are merely labels. The deeper truth is far more unsettling. Self-sabotage is not a malfunction. It is a defense mechanism, honed by evolution and perfected by experience. Think of the last time you hesitated when opportunity knocked. Was it really laziness, as you told yourself? Or was it something darker, something primal, the terror of what might happen if you succeeded? Success changes you. It demands transformation. And transformation is a kind of death. The death of who you were, the death of the familiar, the death of the excuses that have shielded you from the unbearable weight of your own potential. What if self-sabotage is not your enemy, but your psyche's twisted attempt at protection? What if every time you derail your own progress, you are not failing, but retreating? Retreating from the unknown, from the vulnerability of hope, from the terrifying possibility that you might actually become the person you've always pretended to be. This is the great question. What are you so afraid of? Not surface fears, not rejection, not failure, but the subterranean ones. The fear of outgrowing your past, the fear of standing alone in your truth, the fear of realizing, once you have everything you thought you wanted, that it was never the external reward you craved, but the permission to finally exist without apology. The cliff's edge is an illusion. There is no fall, only the endless echoing question: who would you be if you stopped getting in your own way? And the even more unsettling truth? You already know the answer. You've always known. You are not alone in this silent rebellion against yourself. The history of human thought is littered with the wreckage of this paradox. Brilliant minds dissecting why we willingly drink the poison of our own hesitation. The French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre called it bad faith, the act of lying to oneself to escape the unbearable freedom of choice. We sabotage, he argued, because it is easier to play the role of the helpless victim than to face the terrifying truth. We are the architects of our suffering. But why? Why would freedom frighten us more than chains? the safety of the known. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, observed something startling in the depths of human suffering. Even in the most horrific conditions, people would cling to their pain if it was familiar. In his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. Yet when that striving becomes too real, when the goal is no longer a distant fantasy but an imminent reality, we recoil, because the unknown, no matter how glorious, is chaos. And chaos is the mind's oldest enemy." The comfort of limitation. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World Revisited, warned of humanity's tendency toward voluntary self-enslavement. He wrote, "The most successful tyranny is not the one that uses force to assure uniformity, but the one that removes the awareness of other possibilities." Self-sabotage is that tyranny internalized. We impose our own ceilings because transcending them would mean stepping into a world where our old excuses no longer hold power, where we can no longer say, "I could have been great if only." The fear of existential responsibility. Here lies the cruelest twist. Self-sabotage is a form of control. If you are the one who ruins your own chances, then at least the ruin was yours to command. The psychologist R.D. Laing captured this perfectly. The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there is little we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice shapes our thoughts and deeds. In other words, we'd rather be the ones who set the fire than stand helpless in the flames of circumstance. The illusion of deservingness. Beneath it all hums a deeper, more insidious belief. I do not deserve what I desire. This is not merely low self-esteem, it is a philosophical crisis. The ancient Stoics warned of the dangers of attachment to outcomes, but modern psychology reveals something darker. We sabotage success because, on some level, we believe that achieving it would rupture our identity. Who are you if not the struggling artist, the unlucky romantic, the perpetually almost there visionary? If you were to succeed, what would be left of the story you've told yourself? The paradox of self-preservation. And so we arrive at the great irony. Self-sabotage is not self-destruction, it is self-preservation. A last-ditch effort by the psyche to maintain coherence, to keep you, even if that you is smaller than the one you could become. But what if the only way to survive is to first let yourself die? The most dangerous lies are the ones we don't know we believe. You tell yourself you're simply waiting for the right moment, that you work better under pressure, that you don't really want it that badly anyway. But beneath these surface-level justifications, something far more sinister is unfolding, an invisible erosion of your potential, a quiet rewriting of your destiny. The neurological betrayal. Every time you delay, self-doubt or retreat, your brain doesn't just record the action, it reinforces the identity behind it. Neuroscientists call this Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you indulge in self-sabotage, the more your mind accepts it as default behavior. Procrastination isn't just a habit, it becomes who you are. And here's the cruelest twist. Your brain begins to crave the familiar sting of failure more than the uncertainty of success. Like a prisoner who fears the outside world, you grow addicted to your own limitations. The ripple effect of unlived lives. This isn't just about you. Every time you shrink from your potential, the world loses something only you could have contributed. The German poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "The work of the eyes is done. Now go and do the heart work on the images imprisoned within you." But what happens when we refuse that heart work? When we leave our songs unsung, our love unspoken, our dreams unchased? The consequences are not passive, they metastasize. Relationships wither under the weight of unrealized vulnerability. Careers stall not from lack of talent, but from the terror of truly being seen. Entire cultures stagnate when their brightest minds silence themselves before they dare to speak. The illusion of control. You may think you're playing it safe, but self-sabotage is the opposite of control. It's surrender. Psychologist Erich Fromm warned of this in Escape from Freedom. The frightened individual seeks for somebody or something to tie his self to. He cannot bear to be his own individual self any longer, and he tries frantically to get rid of it. Every time you sabotage yourself, what you're really doing is outsourcing your fate to chance, to circumstance, to the judgment of others. You think you're choosing the safer path, but in reality, you're handing the reins to your deepest fears. The silent war within. The greatest casualty isn't your missed opportunities, it's your relationship with yourself. Each act of self-betrayal widens the chasm between who you are and who you sense you could become. The ancient Greeks had a word for this divide: akidia, the paralysis of the soul that comes from knowing your own greatness but refusing to step into it. This is why self-sabotage hurts more than failure. Failure happens to you. But self-sabotage, that's something you do to yourself. And the body keeps score. The weight of unlived potential manifests in unexplained fatigue, in that constant low-grade anxiety, in the haunting sense that you're always on the verge of something you never quite touch. The collective hypnosis. We live in a society that secretly rewards self-sabotage. Think about it. The hustle culture that glorifies burnout, so you never have to face the question, what if I give my all and it's not enough? The romanticization of tortured artists, so you can avoid finishing your work and testing its worth. The social media age that turns aspiration into performance, so you can appear to pursue dreams without ever risking real rejection. These are not accidents, they're systemic reinforcements of the self-sabotage impulse, ways to keep us striving but never arriving, hungry but never fed. The fork in the road. Now comes the pivotal realization. This isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. The patterns you've accepted as inevitable are choices. Thousands of micro-choices woven into the fabric of your daily life. But choices can be unmade. The question is no longer why you do this. The question is, how long are you willing to pay the price? How to break free. The moment you realize you've been both prisoner and jailer is the moment true escape becomes possible. But here's the unsettling truth. You cannot think your way out of self-sabotage. The mind that built the trap cannot be the same mind that dismantles it. You need something more radical, an alchemy of awareness, action, and rebellion against your own instincts. 1. The power of radical acceptance. Psychologist Carl Rogers discovered something revolutionary. People change not when they try to be someone else, but when they fully accept who they are, including their self-destructive patterns. This isn't passive resignation, it's strategic clarity. Try this. The next time you catch yourself sabotaging, don't judge it. Observe it like a scientist. Say, "How fascinating. I'm doing it again." This creates psychological distance, allowing you to see the mechanism without being consumed by it. The 5-second rule of decision. Neuroscience reveals that we have a 5-second window between impulse and action. Hesitate, and the brain defaults to familiar patterns. Mel Robbins' research shows that interrupting this loop with deliberate action, physically moving when you'd normally freeze, rewires the sabotage circuitry. Try this. When you feel resistance, count backward 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and move. Send the email. Make the call. Write the first sentence. Action precedes motivation, not the other way around. 3. The worst case. Liberation exercise. Self-sabotage thrives on vague dread. Therapist Albert Ellis pioneered rational emotive behavior therapy by forcing clients to articulate their deepest fears, which often lost power when spoken aloud. Try this. Finish this sentence. If I succeed, the worst thing that could happen is... Keep going until you hit bedrock. You'll often find the worst case is either survivable or absurd, and never as terrifying as the limbo of self-sabotage. 4. The identity shift. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset reveals, those who believe they can change, do. But there's a deeper layer. You must embody the new identity before evidence exists. Try this. Stop saying, I'm trying to be a writer, and start saying, I am a writer who hasn't found her audience yet. The language of being rewires self-perception. 5. The future self intervention. A Yale study found that people who visualize their future selves made dramatically better long-term decisions. Your sabotaging present self isn't evil. It's just myopic. Try this. Write a letter from your 80-year-old self. What do they thank you for starting today? What do they regret you avoided? This bridges the empathy gap between now you and then you. 6th, strategic imperfectionism. Perfectionism isn't high standards, it's disguised cowardice. As author Anne Lamott insists, the first draft of anything is shit. The goal isn't to be flawless, it's to be in motion. Try this. Deliberately create a bad version first. Write the terrible novel, make the ugly painting. The act of completion, not perfection, breaks the sabotage cycle. 7. The environment overhaul. Willpower is a myth. B.F. Skinner's behaviorism proves. We're products of our environment more than our intentions. Try this. For 1 week, engineer physical changes that make sabotage harder. Delete social media apps during work hours. Pre-schedule gym sessions with a friend. Put your alarm clock across the room. The turning point. These aren't tips, they're psychological mutinies. Each one transfers power from your unconscious patterns to your conscious choice. But remember, you won't feel ready. As existentialist Søren Kierkegaard warned, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. The door was never locked. You just forgot you were the one holding the key. The ultimate truth. There is a secret hidden in plain sight, one that every great philosopher and psychologist has brushed against but few dare to state plainly. Your self-sabotage was never the enemy. It was a distorted act of love. The awakening. Imagine for a moment that every time you hesitated, every time you undermined your own success, every time you chose the safety of mediocrity over the terror of greatness, you were not failing yourself, but protecting some wounded younger version of you that still believes survival means staying small. This is the ultimate paradox. Self-sabotage is the psyche's misguided attempt at self-preservation. That part of you that whispers, "Don't risk it," isn't trying to destroy your life. It's trying to save you from disappointment, from exposure, from the existential vertigo of becoming someone you don't yet know how to be. The death that precedes rebirth. The German poet Hermann Hesse wrote in Demian, "The bird fights its way out of the egg. The egg is the world. Who would be born must first destroy a world." Your self-sabotage patterns are that egg, the protective shell you built to survive past pains, past failures, past moments when your reach exceeded your grasp. To transcend them doesn't require self-loathing or brutal force, but something far more radical. Gratitude for their service, followed by the gentle but firm acknowledgement that their time has passed. The final illusion. Here lies the most liberating and terrifying realization of all. You have always been free. All those years of telling yourself, I can't, or I'm not ready, they weren't truths, but incantations. Spells you cast upon yourself to avoid facing the enormity of your own power. As James Baldwin observed, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. The chains were never real. The prison door was open. The only thing holding you back was your belief that you needed to be held back. The invitation. So here we arrive at the crossroads where psychology meets philosophy, meets raw human experience. This is where you choose. Will you continue performing the old rituals of self-limitation, or will you, right now, in this breath, begin the delicate work of rewiring your deepest narratives? Will you keep making monuments to your doubts, or build altars to your possibilities? The French philosopher Albert Camus left us with perhaps the only answer that matters. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. That summer is your birthright, not when the conditions are perfect, not when you finally feel ready, but now, especially now. The last word. So let us end not with conclusions, but with a beginning, your beginning. Close your eyes. See the cliff edge from our first meeting. Now see this truth. There was never any danger of falling, only the infinite sky waiting to hold you. The question was never, why do I sabotage myself? The real question, the only question, is, what happens next?